Hello viewer and welcome to Capchi TV and to a very new program, Ability in Disability, your program of choice. I am your host, Kaaka. Remember that in this program, all questions, answers shall be provided. Any form of query will be handled with severe adherence, and therefore in our very new program, we have Mr. Samuel Odawo, who is the Director of National Council for People with Disabilities. Remember that you can get in touch with us through our Facebook page, Capuchin Television Network Facebook, or through calling us or texting us on 0717 424 866, or through our Facebook page as well as Ability in Disability. Take a look on this story. Mr. Samuel Ochieng Odawo is a person living with disability. However, he holds a master's degree in management of special education in developing countries from the University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. In addition, he holds a bachelor degree in education from Kenyatta University. Mr. Odawo adds more.
First, I'm a person with disability, totally blind, for those who might not know. Two, I'm a professional in the area of special needs education and disabilities. And three, I'm a disability rights advocate. And then, of course, number four, I'm a director to the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. So if I say I'm a director, it means I sit in the board of directors, National Council for Persons with Disabilities. The board of directors basically is the top organ of the council, and it's most involved with giving strategic direction, advice, and also policy direction to the institution.
The National Council for Persons with Disabilities is a state corporation established by an Act of Parliament, the Persons with Disabilities Act number 14 of 2003, that was set up in November 2004. The director takes us through the functions of the National Council.
The National Council for Persons with Disabilities is a government agency. It's a semi-autonomous government agency domiciled at the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, and its key function is to promote and protect the rights and dignity of persons with disabilities. Yeah. So anything touching on their rights, anything touching on ensuring there is equal opportunity for them to participate in all spheres of life. So we'll be talking of civic, political, economic, social, and cultural affairs, all these spheres of life. That's basically what the council does. So the first is the structure. So we have the board, and then we have the secretariat. So the secretariat is the one that does the everyday job. And then we have, of course, the board of trustees, which manages the National Disability Fund, which is a fund that is also within the National Council for Persons with Disability. So that's first of all the structure of the council. The secretariat is headed by the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, or the Executive Director. And the board is headed by the chairman. So we have a chair. The board is in place for 3 years. The secretariat, of course, is there. Our employees are permanent and pensionable, but the executive director is on contract for 3 years, but that is renewable. So our functions are quite spread. The council, first of all, is in place owing to the Persons with Disability Act 2003, and in Section 7, it spells out the functions, which are very broad. One is registering persons with disabilities across the country.
For them to get the membership card.
Correct. So once they have the disability card, that's when now they can benefit from the services.
Mr. Samuel furthers on some of the services accrued by people with disabilities after accessing the membership card through a certified doctor.
And registration, currently as things stand, is that we go through the persons with disability needing registration would need to go through the medical assessment by a doctor for the council. And
maybe shed some light, because there are some people who do not really understand, because you find that people may say we are not getting maybe a mobility aids, and maybe how does that operate? Because I understand sometimes maybe they can donate wheelchairs, crutches, things like that.
So when we say they do the day-to-day operations, is that they are the ones that execute the functions of the council. Maybe just a run through what some of these functions are. As I've said, one is registration, two is provision of assistive devices, and then we have officers in every county, one officer per county. We call them disability services officer. So that already is a challenge again, because if you talk of counties that are expansive like Marsabit and you only have one officer, then that's a challenge. So first of all, a registration becomes one of the programs. Then we have education assistance fund. Yeah.
For streaming fund.
No, that's for students in school. Right from primary to university. And university we talk of undergraduates. Then we have the economic empowerment fund. Then we have the infrastructure funding. Infrastructure funding targets institutions for persons with disabilities. You'll be aware we have so many special schools. We have the special units, so that is a center within a school.
Albinism Society of Kenya is a national non-profit civil organization established to bring together and assist people with albinism to live dignified lives through 1. Awareness raising to enhance their confidence and self-esteem, advocacy and lobbying, socio-economic opportunities and empowerment, economic empowerment, access to education and training, and finally general management of their health. The National Council Director elaborates further.
We also have what we call the albinism program. Now, on the albinism program, it's a range of services offered there, because you see, persons with albinism lobbied for their own funding, and that fund was brought under the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. So under the albinism fund, and this is important because sometimes people think like we are segregating. People say, why are persons with albinism having too much money on their own? So that is different. And we have cancer treatment for them, we have cancer screening for them, we have the albinism, the sunscreen lotions for them, and we also have the eye care for them.
Mr. Samuel takes us through the entire process of registering for the National Council for People with Disability membership card and the benefit accrued by having the card.
And to be registered, you require the medical assessment. So it starts at the hospital. Registration starts at the public hospital.
For someone to get the membership card?
Yes, right. Level 4 or level 5. So you will walk in there. The hospital has forms, the disability forms, which they will help you fill out. And then they will assess you. From the public hospital, it goes to Afya House for signing by the Director of Medical Services, or now we call them Director General of Health. Once that is signed, so you see the form is from, say, Nyeri or Marsabit, right, or Lodwar in Turkana County. It comes to Nairobi at Afya House, signed then by the Director of Medical Services, and then it comes to us, the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Right. We put you in the system, and then we issue you with a disability card. Now you can go to any of our DSOs, the Disability Services Officer, who is located at the county level. That is the officer who will help you complete the form for the service you want to acquire. If it is Education Assistance Fund, that's easy. You just complete that form. The form will go then to the Board of Trustees, who will then assess it, and then if it is approved, the Secretariat will disperse the fund. That's for education assistance.
Right.
So that is similar with all other services that target an individual, like the tools of trade, or the LPO financing, or the assistive devices.
Having said that, the question is, what about the self-registered help groups?
For funding that targets groups, that would mean that you need to form groups, self-help groups. Then it is through that entity that now one can access the Economic Empowerment Fund.
Briefly, share with us the procedure of maybe those groups to access the fund.
Mostly these groups are registered at the county level, the sub-county level, by the social development officer. Now, this is an officer attached to the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. Once the group has been registered, and for them to be duly registered, they'll need to have a constitution, they'll need to have membership list, and of course there's some fund that they pay. I think, yeah, some little money. And they're told they need to
National
have...
Council?
No, to the DSDO,
Okay.
the Social Development Officer.
Sure.
The District Social Development Officer. And they are issued with a certificate. Now, once they have registered, for us, we only register them so that we keep track of how many DPOs are in the country. And so that also, when they come to request for funding, we know that they are legit, legitimate organizations.
Sure.
Once they have that is done. Now they apply for the Economic Empowerment Fund. To apply for that, they will go to our officer at the county, our Disability Services officer. He or she will issue them with a form, which they will complete. Yeah, it will ask a few questions, the form, which they need to fill in. And once that is been duly filled in, it will be entered into our system. The Board of Trustees will assess that and then decide, this Board of Trustees is the one that manages the National Disability Fund.
Sure.
Which is a part of our funding, but you see now it is them managing that. And they have that room to do so. Once they have assessed and decided, vetted and decided that, okay, the group qualifies to get the funding, then the Secretariat will disperse the fund.
Okay.
So not every group will get it, because you see, we have hundreds of groups in the county.
So that
and only a few groups can get it because of the resources available. Yes.
So there are key considerations you would like to maybe look at before you disperse the fund.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. We, as a policy, the board will decide we want, for instance, to deal with groups based at the county.
Okay.
Now, it is then the Board of Trustees that goes into the nitty-gritty. Why Group A and not Group B? So then they'll set out, say, a regulation that the group needs to be operational for a certain period of time.
Okay.
So that I'm not forming a group today and tomorrow I'm rushing to look for the Economic Empowerment Fund.
Right.
Because then what happens is that money ends up in somebody else's pocket.
Sure.
The leadership, sometimes if you don't have a sound financial management skills, then that money sometimes gets lost, and we don't want that.
Wow, thank you very much, our viewer, for joining us on our very new program, as I told you earlier, Ability in Disability, where disability matters. And in this program, as I told you, that this is where disability issues are tackled. You can call us on 0717 424 866 or through our Facebook page, Ability in Disability, or through Capuchin Television Network Facebook page. I hope you've learned so many things from Mr. Odawo, whereby he's sensitizing or rather shedding light on the main functions of National Council for Persons with Disability. We are going for a short break, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned. I am your host, Kaaka. Welcome back, our viewer, and thank you for joining us on our very new program, Ability in Disability, whereby, as I told you earlier, that this is a program whereby we do create disability awareness and tackle all the issues around disability. It is in this program that your questions and any other or any form of concerns will be tackled with adherence. And therefore, as I told you earlier, that today we have Mr. Samuel Odawo, who is the director in the National Council for Persons Living with Disabilities. We have him today, and he's enlightening us more on the key roles and on the functions of National Council for Persons Living with Disabilities.
Did you know that the people living with disabilities are entitled to a tax exemption certificate for their first 150,000 that they earn? The director responds.
It is a provision in the law that persons with disabilities ought to be exempted from paying tax, those that are in employment. And yes, we facilitate that as one of our functions as the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. We facilitate that by guiding persons with disabilities through the process, and the process is you need the latest medical assessment form or report, bring it together with a letter from your employer, pay slips, and of course that assessment form, and then we transfer that to KRA, Kenya Revenue Authority, who will then issue with the tax exemption certificate. So KRA now has a new platform, an online platform, which then makes the process much shorter. So once we've uploaded the document onto their system, it should only take 5 days, and the applicant has the form.
Only 5 days?
Yes, 5 days. But the process, because it involves 3 institutions. Remember the Minister of Health, which does the assessment, us, the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, which then transfers this application to KRA, and KRA, which issues the tax exemption certificate. It's something that that's where I wear my cap as a disability rights advocate again. But now it's up to the one who has applied. Do not just sit and wait for the process to go through. There's need to also follow through, finding out where is your application. Has the medical services guys given you the report? Has it come to us? Has it been transferred to the KRA? Because you see, we have very few staff. So given the many other functions that we do, sometimes this process gets a bit slowed down, and so it is important for that follow-up to be made. But yes, other than the tax exemption certificate, which targets those who are in employment, as I mentioned earlier, we also ensure that those who are in business, self-employed that is, are still also exempt from paying taxes, because the law allows that, and we ensure that we write them a letter, and the county governments are then not able to harass them.
Mr. Samuel Odawo has also lamented that all stakeholders in the society, that is, private developers, learning institutions, hospitals, among other public and private sectors, should consider the people with disabilities in whatever services they provide. As any other organization, National Council for People with Disabilities is also facing some challenges, as narrated by the director.
I checked the system and I saw that our data shows that we've only registered 750,000 so far. 750,000 persons with disabilities. That is way too small, because you know that statistics show from the 2009, and that is 2009 census, that we about 3.5% of Kenyans are persons with disabilities. So that puts us around 1.5 million way back then. And so it is comfortably approximated that we should be talking of around 4.5 or upward of 4.5 million persons with disabilities in the country. So if you have only registered 750, then that means a lot of work is still yet to be done. And when you have limited resources, then it means that is a problem. And then, of course, limited resources would mean that you can also not employ enough staff to handle the work. The secretariat, you can't employ enough staff in the secretariat to handle the work. And then another thing is that there is a lot of compartmentalization of disability. Yeah? So that anything that a person with disability requires, any service, you're told, go to the National Council. Our view is, and this is something that is close to my heart, is that we should be able to promote disability inclusion in every sector of the society. So if a university has admitted a student with a disability into their institution, they should be able to provide for accommodation. Kenya is a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And the CRPD, as it is called in short, is so keen on reasonable accommodation, enabling a person to participate fully and equally in all spheres of life, giving them equal opportunities. So a university should be able to do that. But you see, sometimes they'll still say, council, help us in this. Or a hospital. The hospital should be having sign language interpreters. Every hospital. So that a person with hearing impairment does not show up and then you become uneasy as to how you'll handle them. Even in pubs, I know that is a bit private, but even in pubs, persons with disabilities want to go and enjoy the services there. And so we should be having persons who are able to handle persons with disabilities in every sector of our society. All ministries of government, all SAGAs, the semi-autonomous government agencies, and parastatals, and then all private developers should always do things with a person with disability in mind, because we say now that with the advent of the CRPD, persons with disabilities are no longer objects of charity. They are equal members of the society who should be valued for their inherent worth as human beings.
The director has also mentioned on some of the achievements of the National Council.
Like I said, we've registered 750,000. That's a bit minimal, but it's a success anyhow. 750,000. Approximately 4.5 million and above. Yeah. So there's a lot of ground to be covered. We have successfully
maybe
run.
What are some of the steps that you're making sure that you're going to maybe acquire or rather achieve these targets?
Like devolving the services, the registration, so that you don't have to bring your assessment report to Afya House from Turkana. Let the doctors in Turkana handle that with fidelity. That will really help. When we finally go that direction and it is approved by all stakeholders, that will bring monumental successes. And then the Education Assistance Fund, we've managed
that development has not yet been achieved.
No, not yet.
It's on process, right?
It's still underway. The Education Assistance Fund, we've assisted so many to get education. Like education is the equalizer of opportunities. Every person with disability requires that education. So we've done some progress in that area. We've made progress also in the economic empowerment program. On assistive devices, we have given out quite a number of. We give almost 3,000 assistive devices every year. So if we've been doing this right from 2010 to date, that's 9 years of giving assistive devices. And yes, there are still so many people who have applied and haven't received the devices, but if we give 3,200 per year, and for 9 years, that's quite a number.
Sure.
We've also done the tools of trade, the LPO financing, and of course the tax exemption that I've mentioned, and the albinism fund. So many persons with albinism have received sunscreen lotions, eye care, cancer treatment, cancer screening, and that is some success to be cited.
In addition, Mr. Samuel had these key remarks on the issue of employment of people living with disabilities.
One other key function that the Council is passionate about is promoting inclusive disability employment. I should say that's one area that I'm very, very passionate about. And you see, this is important because access to employment for persons, we know that we have problems with access to education and health services in virtually in every other sphere of life. But accessing employment even after one has qualified, having gotten the certificates from universities or colleges, is a huge problem. And so council is so much involved with that. And currently we are doing two things. One is that we do write recommendation letters to those seeking employment, those persons with disabilities seeking employment. And also we are developing a job portal where we have the CVs, the curriculum vitae of qualified persons with disabilities, and then match them with potential employers. It is something that has not yet really been successful yet, but we are working with other stakeholders, especially in the program that has been funded by the UK aid, the UK government. You remember last year we had the Global Disability Summit in the UK. And so now the UK government is helping with the funding to ensure that employment for persons with disabilities is a success in this country. And we are working with stakeholders to do exactly that. So the job portal is now underway, and we encourage persons with disabilities to keep bringing their CVs to the council. And I know that the success is rudimentary, but we are making baby steps towards success. So we want to ensure that getting employment for a person with disability does not become the nightmare that it is right now. And with employment comes reasonable accommodation. So that when employers advertise for jobs, are these adverts accessible to all categories of persons with disabilities? Those who are blind, those who are hearing impaired, are they able to get the adverts? Because if we only advertise on newspapers and yet no newspaper is in braille, then it means those who are blind will miss out. So adverts must be accessible, and the workplace must be accessible, and also the career development or the in-house training for employees, what we call in-service training for employees, must also take into consideration that they are employees with disability, so that everyone at the workplace is having an equal opportunity to develop themselves career-wise. So that's an area that I thought I should insist on, and together with other stakeholders, we can make inclusive employment for persons with disabilities a success.
Thank you very much, Odawo, for joining us on our program Ability in Disability, whereby today we've learned so much about the National Council and the functions that the organ, the government organ or other institution has been entitled to do in terms of helping the people living with disabilities in the country. I remember that if you have any form of query, you can call us on 0717 424 866, or you can as well reach us through our Facebook page, Capuchin Television Network Facebook page. Also share your views on our Facebook page, on our program Facebook page, Ability in Disability. I have been your host, Kaaka. See you next time, and may God bless you.